the proof today. So thank you, Hara'im Habab Jadefrei Hatat and Manfu Ba'a Kebab, and welcome everybody as you've joined us for the proof, but obviously have been wisely informed on Grandma's they say and sayings of Parnabab, so nothing wasted in terms of time. But now we're going to get into the proof by way of Parnabab Yaanuwn part 1. Welcome to Wu-Sabat Outformation class in UK, brought to you by All Eyes in Egypt, Midlands and the North. So this is probably going to be a 4-part class, maybe a bit longer than that. We're going to start with the introduction today. Interesting enough, with this particular scroll, we see that a lot of it actually features in the way we sort of put this template, etc., together. So much of it is from the proof, an absolutely outstanding scroll. And so we're going to dig a little bit deeper today, even if it's maybe touching on subjects that we've covered before. We're going to go a little bit deeper, and hopefully it should be a continuation, maybe not hopefully, but it should be a continuation from the Lotus of Life, Mother of Existence classes that have been done before. And if we've done our job properly, then you may glean some greater insight into maybe really understanding some of the words being conveyed to us on the page by the master teacher, Parnabab Yaanuwn. Okay, so let's get started. Now I'm not going to run any polls today because it seems we're in Gremlin City, but I'm not going to do that. But if there are any issues with the sound, then by all means, just please give us some feedback in the chat area, and obviously that'll be conveyed back through the moderators, and then we can adjust accordingly. So let me start off correctly. Partak Yud, the affirmation. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Don't get too freaked out. We are Sabians, United Sabians worldwide, and our culture is Wu-Sabat, and our language is Musbatia or Sabaik. And so we're going to start off the class properly by just helping us to connect with our ancestors, that we have a positive experience for our class that we're bringing to you today. So I'm going to say it in Sabaik language first, and then we'll translate that into English for full and proper understanding for those who don't speak Sabaik. Adoy Kaleh Tapalurat Wu Fakur Amerikasam Un Empa Paut Naut Mugdad Badet Pata Naut Mukhlas Badet Yaanuwn Partak Yud. Anuki Jawef Pa Ashuk Empa Paut Wu Kalel Ashuk Kawun Jawef Neya. Anuki Kasam Un Empa Paut Wu Pa Paut Kasam Un Kawun Kasam Un Em Neya. Anuki Wahu Ameh Pa Paut Wu Pa Paut Kawun Wahu Ameh Neya. Nakuk Kadur Naju Ameh Kasam Un Empa Paut Wu Habub Ameh Mushahas Nakuk Kadur Kawan Kalel Pafef Nakuk Dayur Jawef Pa Paut Ameh Wase Ameh Dayarni Kawun Lakei Bakoy Jawef Pa Paut Anuki Abed Bin Afashni Pa Paut Kawun Anuki Pa Paut Kadur Nakuk Kadur Pa Paut Amul Nakuk Amul. So we started off by saying begin all prayers and thinking as a part of the all, and then we explained no God except Ptah, no Savior except Yaanuwn. If you have questions on that, please feel to ask. So Yaanuwn being the head of the 9. And so we give, at least in this version of existence that we are in, all praise is due to Ptah, you understand, as one of the plans within the mind of Pa Paut. That's this plan of existence, the head of the 9 for us as descendants of the ancient Egyptians who are now ancient Egyptians. The 9, Ptah is the head. So part secured the affirmation, and then we said, I am in the divine love of the all-expanding, and all divine love is in me. I am a part of the all-expanding, and the all-expanding is a part of me. I am one as the all-expanding, and the all-expanding is one as me. I can succeed as a part of the all-expanding and fail as an individual person. I can be all that I want in the all-expanding, as long as my want is to stay in the all-expanding. I am never by myself. The all-expanding is, I am. The all-expanding can, I can. The all-expanding does, I do. So that was Partek Yud, affirmation, a positive affirmation. A lot of meaning in that, and certainly as we go through the proof as well, it's supposed to be every class, but it gives you some greater insight into what we're talking about there. But if you don't understand, then please, by all means, ask questions. So very quick induction on Zoom. Audio settings, if you need to adjust them, see the panel there on your left-hand side. If you need to adjust your sound for any reason, feel free to do so by pressing that button. Got 3 icons here in the center just for interacting today. So it is an interactive session. So if you need to give any feedback of any type, use the chat area. I don't think it needs to be enabled. Just bear with me one moment. Zoom has changed the setup here. This may be why. Okay, so the chat is enabled. Keep forgetting I have to switch that on. Before it used to be just a default everybody. Now apparently you have to switch it on. So the chat should be enabled, and that will give everybody the opportunity to feedback as things are going on. Select the distribution panel, as everyone, so that your messages can be seen by everybody. If you just leave it on the default, sometimes it says hosts and panelists, and so it just means that we see it and everybody else can see it. So as you can see here, if I type the distribution, it just makes sure everybody can see what's going on. So the next 2 buttons there are here we've got 2 ways to ask questions in the seminar today. So one is raise hand. So if you want to come through live and ask questions directly to myself as a student teacher today, then you can do so by raising your hand at the appropriate time. The moderator will call your name out, and then the moderator will ask you to unmute yourself. You'll see this message appear on your screen, and once that appears, if you can respond accordingly, then you'll come through live and ask your question accordingly. And I'll do my best to answer your questions today. Once you have asked your question, you've got the ability to unmute yourself. So if you can stay muted, just to not disturb the rest of the class once you've asked your question and any follow-ups. If you've dialed in today, I'm not sure if anybody has, but if they have dialed in today, *9 to raise your hand to ask a question, and then prompted *6 to unmute yourself or mute yourself back again. If you're not confident to come through or don't wish to come through live, then you can ask a written question by pressing the Q&A button, place a written question, and then one of the moderators will ask the question on your behalf. Okay. So no poll questions today, just because we're having a bit of technicals, and I say it seems to crash the system every time we press the button. But periodically we will have recap quizzes. Certainly we'll do in this series of seminars, and that's just to make sure that you're gaining some understanding of what is being expressed here, because it is a class, so you should be taking it in and mastering. If you're not clear on something, then by all means, as I say, ask questions. Right, okay, so let's get into the nub of what we're dealing with today. So as you've been hearing, you heard certainly the book They Say, which was written by the master teachers, or who we call the master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z. Kabina York Okran, also known to us as Nabab Yaanuwn, or Master Yaanuwn as it translates to English there. Born in Takoradi, Ghana, West Africa, 1945, June 26, and was born as a servant to Mary Abba of York, also known to us as Fatima. So this is the sacred feminine that you were listening to Brother Hara'im Habab Jadefre Hattab when he was reading from the book They Say. And so a very wise individual, arguably, as I say, maybe the most important sacred feminine in the last 6,000 years. As we start to understand that reason why, it's because you had a culmination of different leaders and teachers that really tried to restore us back to who we are supposed to be according to natural nature. And so in our story and in our culture, we were always matriarchal. Understood? Patriarchy came in, or patriarchal teachings and ways of say societal expression and systems that based around that came in with a group of extraterrestrials referred to as the Anunnaki biblically, and we'll explore that as we step into the proof a little bit further. You understand? But we were always matriarchal. If you've been following certainly the last two parts of the classes that we've been delivering, last two seminars I should say that we've been delivering, you understand that the foundation of existence is by all means female, and even Wu-Sabat, spiritual science of the Negroid in this day and time, we brought back to us as our story renews itself every 24,000 years, is feminine in origin. Understood? So even in the language is feminine in origin. Understood? Wu-Sabat, Sabat tying into the Sirius star constellation. We'll get into that a little bit later on today. So very important sacred feminine, giving birth to, as I say, the one of many teachers, but certainly the master teacher, the culmination of us renewing our story in this day and time, as I say, where all truth must come back, facts being the new spirituality in this day and time, and false things must perish. So in us restoring back our culture, you can see her here in her clan mother attire. Unfortunately, so she has now transitioned. She's one of our ancestors now. So that mantle was passed on to her daughter, Kimam Tatmut Patalret Tumriye, through the mitochondrial line, as well as obviously her being suitably qualified to be appointed to that role. Yeah, so we see her here in the clan mother attire, and we showed you and pointed you out. See here in this depiction the symbol of the lotus flower. So certainly by all means check out those classes if you want more detail on the lotus flower and its importance to our culture as ancient Africans, ancient Egyptians. Yeah, the true ones of that. No one's subverting or superseding who we are. We are in the walls of ancient Egypt, and no one can deny our genetics and genes in that regard. Understood? So his father, Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi, as I say, born 1922, and the link there to the mother or his mother, Fatima, obviously coming from Ghanaian origin. The Kan tribes in West Africa, the Iwe tribe in particular. And here we see the Sudanese link by way of Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman. And as we always express in this class, yeah, he's linked then to his his grandfather, Mustafa Al-Mahdi, or Muhammad Al-Mahdi of the Sudan, as I say, which ties us back and say quite nicely all the way back to, say, our pre-dynastic Tamarayan or ancient Egyptian roots in that regard, because he was, as the Mahdi, very famous person in history, he was hired by the Sudanese. Himself was no Sudanese, he was hired by them. Understood? And so, as I say, Egyptian really in origin. And so our Egypt, like I, not a Y. Obviously, the people who are in Egypt today are not the indigenous people to that land, not indigenous to the culture. You understand? They did not give birth to that culture. They are Muslims today. The last Nubian pharaoh was a man named Anwar Sadat. You understand? Who obviously had that link, genetic link back to us. But that's arguably our lost birthright. Many people all over the world want to claim the greatness, but leave us with all the pain. Understood? But in this day and time, that's where things must change. As I say, the great Dr. Yaanuwn obviously always used to kind of speak about those ancient Africans who, as I say, the pyramid building culture, what brought Wu-Sabat to us. We didn't know the name of it at that time. He always spoke about the Egyptians, obviously with the definite article, the this, the that, as if he's studying a people that he was not a part of. Understood? And that's because his religious ties or affiliations, obviously tying into Judaism or Hebrewism, as they might classify it today, prevented him from embracing necessarily that which he was studying. But in this day and time, in the here on into the thereafter, we as the descendants say, I am, you understand, an Egyptian, you understand, or I am a Kadem Mohammedu, or I am the ancient Egyptians, you understand, or Egyptians today, their descendants, that's who we are. Story now renewed, undisputed. Well, some may dispute it, but it's undisputed to us. Actual facts, who we are, descended from the Sands people today as their evolutionary descendants. You understand? So let's get into some interesting things. So here we see the master teacher at age 25, when he describes himself as being initiated or housed by by the being we know today as Nabab Yaanuwn. But in that day and time, we were not ready for Wu-Sabat. They started with it in 1963, and officially 1970, officially, with various books being released at that time. Iron Ball in particular being a very significant book at that time, but it was too heavy for the people. So therefore, the doctrine, or the message, I should say, so Wu-Sabat is not tailored, but the message of Wu-Sabat allowing us to connect to the frequency of Wu-Sabat and allow it to shape us by way of the Outformation, shaping us shaping us when it comes to here to inform our present being, needed to be tailored in order for it to be palatable for our people to hear and be understood. And so our people didn't want to hear that Wu-Sabat and ancient Egypt, ancient Africa at that time. We wanted to worship, understood, not understanding that in everybody else's culture, we were that which was worshipped. We were the Allah, we were the Most High, we were the Elohim, we were those individuals that they claim in their mythological books. In actuality, was us which they worshipped, understood? And so we wasn't ready for that level of responsibility in accordance with natural nature. And so we wanted to worship. So the master teacher said, I came giving you what you want, so you would learn to want what I really came to give. So we were given a version, the more the message was tailored, the balag, as they say in the Subic language, was tailored to the people at that time. So we were given a version of monotheism in order to walk us back to ancient Egypt, or the Wu-Sabat teachings in its pristine purity. Understood? Now, as I say, when you think about our methodologies or our ancestors' methods of teaching, it doesn't rely on burying things in the ground in order for us to dig them up later and then wonder about who our ancestors were. Understood? Our Outformation comes from above down. Understood? So, and that is in the form of birthing different teachers or leaders into this world, as I say, who have knowledge of outside of the status quo, so to speak, and those links back to the originals we're going to touch upon in this class today. And so he claims to be even housed by a being, as I say, that was necessary to provide us with the information necessary for our transformation this day and time. Now, in ancient Egypt, that being was known as Tahuti, understood? That's what they referenced him, but the true title was Amun Nabab Raye Akhtar, Understood? So when they were saying or calling that being Tahuti, really when you look at the symbolism in the Safaf or the hieroglyphs of the name, the term Achah was in the sound, which relates to the Ifrit being. It was really the term Tahuti. Understood? So they were giving you part of the name, but not the full name. So now in this time, you know who they're referencing. It's Amun, Nabab, Create, Akhata, which is a vehicle or a vessel that our ancestors used to communicate that which their children or their descendants need to know in this day and time to aid their transformation. Yeah, the Hindus use the term avatara or avatar. In Islam, they use the term Ila Mutajasid. In the Christian degree, they use the term Emmanuel. Understood? So an divine incarnating or personification of the divine. And what you're going to realize, even in their books, although we don't associate with the Bible, obviously the Bible's a factual book. There are codes in there, which is a say, it speaks to that, or speaks to certain codes of what we would do if we were speaking in modern day language, I should say. It would talk about extraterrestrial involvement. So I think we've broken down to before the term Elijah, for example. We look at because in the language, they talk about the word Lord God in the Bible, for example, or the Torah, specifically first 5 books of Moses. So when they're saying Lord God, for example, that is Yahuwah Elohim, right? So Yahuwah is talking about lords above the Elohim in their biblical hierarchy, and they are extraterrestrials, as we're using modern day terminology, who are existing, coming down to earth. Understood? Yeah, like Genesis chapter 11, the Lord God came down. Understood? From outside. But if you reverse it and you say Elohim Yahuwah, for example, and you take the first 3 letters of each of the word, you say Eli, yes? So Eli, Elohim of Eli, it's Eli of Elohim, and you take the Yah of Yahuwah, you get Elijah or Elijah. You understand? And so when you see it reversed, that's talking about a being that's born through the womb of an individual, but has that divine or extraterrestrial link inside, but they were born through the womb of a woman. You understand? So they appear human but are not. Understood? So this is where this kind of codification comes in. But however, all of that they've copied from things that they have either experienced in or came before. Understood? So this connection with our ancestors and us here on earth started back home with us in ancient Egypt. Our ancestors, I say, always been there, always guiding us. But as we step through, you can see it's always been there. We just obviously have been ignoring it because we've been under a sickness, referred to as a spell in our doctrine, which has made us spiritually ignorant, and racially blind, as well as not being able to recognize leadership, or having difficulty recognizing leadership in our own skin color, particularly dark skin leadership. We'll explore that, as I say, in further parts of this class today. I was looking at Al Sharpton on the media the other day, and if you look at Al Sharpton's look, it tells you everything you need to know about the plot, certainly since the 400-year slavery, of introducing mixed leadership into to cover or govern over or be the head or over Nagaru people, certainly in the Western Hemisphere. So black, but there's wavy kind of hair texture or fur texture that you see is a deliberate things that took place in cities all over the States, in particular, referred to as Salem. You understand? And we'll get more into that maybe a bit later. So, cycling back around to say, when we talk about leaders being born and into this world, it's because not that Wu-Sabat changes, but the message that needs to be delivered for the day and time, because although we are our ancestors, in a sense, we have been changed because the genes tumble forward, and you understand that epigenetic changes, i.e., that 76% of our DNA is not static, but it's in a say static, is programmed. But then 24% of the DNA is what we would describe as in a transient state. So it's reacting to the environment in and around us. So it's constantly changing, and so therefore the message must be tailored, as I say, for the people in this day and time, as it has with the care, love, and attention and sacrifices that have been made by many teachers, culminating in the one that you're seeing on the screen now. As I say, at that time, for the religious decrees known as Isa al-Mahdi, up until the point of 1996. And the being that was in house was known as El Khadir, or the green one. In 1996, you see those two numbers, 9 and the 6, there in that year, was the release of the Holy Tablets. So the Holy Tablets, scripture given to us in this day and time, was the bridge between religion and reality for us. You understand? Breaking down, I suppose, or giving the truth, arguably one would say, in all these different stories of where your monotheistic religious stories came from, walking you back. But all the time within that book, if for those who are really paying attention, you see ancient Egypt within there, do you understand? As well as obviously pointing towards who the Egyptians referred to as the Natharu, but their true name was the Razak, the Rizkians, or the providers. Understood? Tying into where they're from, Razak or Rizq, which is, as I say, in the 90th galaxy, which we get there by way of the Sirius star constellation. So a new combination was needed for us stepping into the year 2000, 9th of September 1999, as we always say, symbolizes the end of the devil's rule for the last 6,000 years. The devil in our culture, say, meaning those who disturb our peace. The devil has a purpose as opposed to a race, but specifically, we know who has been troubling us for the last 6,000 years. In particular, is the Muadamu and the Mukasu, the red and ruddy race. We'll get more into that, as I say, as we step through the proof. So that new combination to bring us into our culture in this day and time was Dr. Malachi Z. Kabina York Okran and the internal being known as Pa Nabab, which we're going to touch upon in the proof today. Yes. So, very quickly, who are we? United Sabians worldwide. As you can see on the screen, no one wins the race in racism. So we make that statement to say that, we're touching on racial subjects in these classes, but not from a point of hate, from a point of science. Obviously, when we want to get to talk about us, some people have an issue with us talking about us and us talking about the unification of us and not anybody else sometimes. And sometimes that's a problem for people. Although in this society, we accepted everybody else as who they are or how they were presented to us. But when we didn't know who we were and now have to go on a journey to find out who we are because of the limited lack of information and purposefully hidden information about who we are, when we go to outside sources to have to find that information, all of a sudden society has a serious problem with it. Understood? But they can't stop Pops. They can't stop Wu-Sabat. Understood? So we are United Sabians worldwide and independent, or establish our sovereignty in June 26, 1992. As you can see, our language is Sabaik or Misbatia. Culture is Wu-Sabat. But as I say, we did have a land called Misbatia, but we're now currently displaced around the world, known as Wu-Sabatu in tones. And the master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z. K. York, a victim of COINTELPRO, has been incarcerated since May 8, 2002. But still, we find that our ancestors, by way of him, have still found a way to get this doctrine called Wu-Sabat to flood the world today. Yeah, so as we make the statement, let's make the world better together, in the sense that each one of us is a building block to a better life. So if we transform ourselves individually and reshape ourselves first, cleaning ourselves inside out and outside in, it gives us the confidence to come together and work together for the betterment of our race, and more importantly, for the planet. Understood? This is why the word race really was updated in the actual facts series, or also actual fact book history, where it used the term planetary nation. Understood? So planetary nation was the upgraded word for race, and the Nagaru race was known as the all nation. Understand? Having or giving birth to all other races on this planet. Is the actual facts. Racism, or certainly if it is racism, it's right racism, not wrong racism. Wrong racism being the suppression of another race to further your own race, which is not our way. Understood? Okay, so let's get into the proof by way of Pa Nabab Yaanuwn. If it seems familiar, as I say, it's because it's sort of the foundation, interweaves in the sort of template that we use for teaching class, and it's interesting how much influence, as I say, it has on how we set everything up, what it's shown us. Are there any questions before I get into this detail?
Right. We do have a question, and it's not that I'm being. It's from Fernando. Fernando, your hand has been up from the beginning of class. We've just started class, and I'm not sure if your question is relevant, Fernando. If you could talk to me in the chat, and we can clarify what your question is going to be, because we have started a little bit behind the clock, and we do want to get into this class. So, Fernando, I will send you a personal message. We'll have a chat, and then we'll move into the questions. But otherwise, on that, we don't have any questions at this moment in time.
Okay, work it out, whatever it is. You've got my questions being done, so by all means, work it out, and to ask, feel free to proceed. Okay, so the proof by way of Pa Nabab Yaanuwn. So it's explained to us in very large writing in one of the early parts of the page, which a wise person is taught to learn. A fool is taught only to listen and believe. Zi'u Sa'ul Ama Khamem Wu Laben. It is as plain as black and white. So this is why, as I say, you're not listening to us preach. We're student teachers, supposed to be teaching. And when you pick up a book, you are seeking to learn, you understand, or study. You should be studying those books, you understand, not reading as a form of entertainment, just solely kind of almost in that sense, but master what the master teacher is teaching. Understood? So this is how one of the ways in which we proceed and we grow. You understand? So most of us first encountered this book, or a response to that awareness feeding that we had internally, and was met by, as I say, maybe speaking to a brother or sister on the street, or listening to a class, or, as I say, having the opportunity to pick up a book where there's magic in those words, there's power in those words. Yes, but a lot of us were conditioned, not all, but a lot of us were conditioned in the religious degrees, as I say, and we were not taught to question what was being expressed to us. You understand? We just accepted it because either it was there for a long time, or because it's been established. So many people accept it or believe it, etc. So therefore, it's gained or perceived as to be true just because it's been around for a long time, or say a lot of people acknowledge its existence. But we didn't question it. This is a major problem. Even when you're stepping into a new doctrine like Wu-Sabat, or it feels new, at least in this day and time, they seem to classify it as new cycle or new age religions, or whatever they want to refer to it as in that regard. But that's, as I say, because you're dealing with the fact that it's not been established through their system. And as we said many times in this class before, remember, author, authority, authentic. You don't have enough authors, you don't become the authority. You don't decide what is or what is not authentic. So when we make a statement, oftentimes people are saying to us, well, where's the proof? Yes, they say, where's the proof? How can you prove that that's correct? But you never questioned the established education system or what you're taught in this society as well. Where's their proof? Where's their legacy? Where's the facts that support what they're saying? Understood? And so a lot of people can get caught up in the mythology, we can know without mentioning names, getting caught up to get power, but people getting caught up now in classifications or attacking this group or that group, etc., etc. And in actuality, when you think about books like the Torah, the Bible, in the sand, to some degree, the Quran is a copy of the Bible in the sand, other than Muhammad, you understood? Yeah, who in the book has actually existed? Who in the book existed? So getting into arguments and discussions about mythology and saying you're better to argue about what's the Game of Thrones or was it House of Dragons, whatever the new one is. That's equally as valid in terms of proof that those books purport to provide. You understand? And so the master teacher tells us, or has expressed to us for many years, certainly since incarceration, is step out of their way. You understand? Step out of their way. Certain arguments have nothing to do with us. It's not our books. That's it's their origin. It's their books. So why are you fighting for something that doesn't belong to you? You need to detach yourself from that in order to get to that space, place, etc. Then you have to put the work in. The medicine is actual facts. The medicine is Parteract. The medicine is the master secrets in this day and time. The medicine or the doctor is Dr. Malachi K.Z. York, in-housed by Nabab, Yaanuwn, designed to address and tackle, let's say, the spell that we as all suffered from. Understood? So this is why it's necessary proof by way of Nabab, Yaanuwn. For others and maybe for other races, that may work for them. But as I say, their spirituality does not necessarily work for you because it's not designed to. Yeah, so you have to embrace your own. Yeah, to embrace your own and connect by way of Om into the source inside of all existence, which you are a part of and represent, being descended from it. Now, so let's look at the first couple of verses. Maybe we get past verse number 2. I would doubt it very much because there's a lot of not contained within that we need to remind ourselves of, also as well as explore in further detail. So, verse 1 says, "In the beginning were the sons, and the sons are within fatir, natural nature, and the sons are natural nature." Yeah, so we understand that nature itself is a reactive system, highly complicated system of rules that govern life, death, within existence. Yeah, highly complicated, and as I say, react in a way that's very efficient, and doesn't require a lot of intervention. Do you understand? So, but the natural part of it also denotes that, as I say, there are things that are part of, but a mentality or an intelligence that is guided, that designed nature. You understand? Designed it for the environment that we're in and applies those rules accordingly, making it self-sufficient. Do you understand? Autonomous system in that regard. Understood? And so you don't see others using that terminology in that way. So it's important for us to really understand what is being expressed here. Yeah, it's talking about there's an intelligence that sits behind nature, even though we're a part of it. There's intelligence behind that designed it, brought it into fashion, understood. And I say terms that have been given within religion have not proven themselves, whilst they make certain claims. When you start to dig into a lot of detail, many of the claims that the followers claim that terms like God, Most High, etc., mean, and the claims that they make that this particular beings are responsible for existence, we don't see the proof. You understand? We don't see the proof. And what this is expressing to you, that the beings responsible for growing natural nature are suns, S-U-N suns. Yeah, the environment that we're in. Yeah, so they're responsible or are part of natural nature. So that intellect, or the point of intellect at least, and who we're referring to, our ancestors, are sons. Yeah, so that's one of the things they took away from us, was the visualization and the reality of who we are. So let's just say, one of the examples that the master teacher gives is the fact that if you've got siblings, you think about your brother, you got an image. You think about your sister, you've got an image. You think about your father, if you know who your father is, then you've got an image. You think about your mother, who you know your mother is, you've got an image. When you start to use terms like God, Lord, Most High, there's no image. Yeah, so the vividness of what is required there, that kind of confidence, the foundation of it, is not known, and then it yields or breeds uncertainty. It breeds doubt, you understand, on something that should be known. All of us should know the origin, all of us should know how life started, so on and so forth. But religion finds itself in a state, or particularly monotheist religion, finds itself in a state of speculation, which we explored, as I say, in those previous classes, because men are the ones who, men are the ones who created those religions by translating these various books and Bible, which has led, Bible, Quran, and so on and so forth, which has led to division. You understand? We'll explore that in the next class, as we understand what unity is in this one. Now, so stars, importance of them, suns, natural nature. It says the suns, the true Kakabat stars, are Panatharu, the overseers. So as we expressed earlier, this is a term that our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, used. Some say Natiru or Natharu here in this proper tones, the overseers, whose name was Morozaku. And the proper name is Morozaku, providers. It says, who grew absolute natural nature from and of omniverse all into universe, the all. So we see here this term pa'ut, all, and pa'ut have obviously a differential. You say omni, you're saying everything. Yeah. And so obviously when we see the universe, then we're saying part. Yeah, but still having the characteristics of the whole. Yes. So the same way, as I say, we can be part and whole at the same time, isn't it? You did not donate a part of yourself in order to produce children, understood, but you're still whole, even though you've donated part, and then your children are you. Hence the term, your children are you, or saying of one of the sayings of Dr. Malachi York is, your children are you, do you like what you see? Yeah, so part and whole, explore that, so it can be one and the same through natural rules. Now, 2, so it says, so know this, truth is unity and falsehood is division. Truth is unity because the pieces of the true jigsaw puzzle fit neatly together as one unit. And falsehood is division because it is just the opposite. So this is an interesting statement for us, yes, because it's saying here, truth, which we know that truth, in the hierarchy or divine hierarchy of things, you have divine truth, and then above that you have divine reality. So truth, as we engage in this sort of journey from almost delighting, removing the chaos that light has caused in our minds, and walking back into the darkness of tranquility, of peace, of supreme balancement. Yes, we have to go through truth, because truth is dealing with, at certain points, it can deal with perspectives. You understand? But it's not necessarily, but it's a step down, one may use that word loosely, you understand, from reality. You understand? Because something can be true according to a certain perspective, but it's not reality. Yeah, but nonetheless, for us finding the truth, or hakat tal hakakat, the actual facts, understood, is unity for us. You understand? And what it's explaining here is, in this second part of the verse, saying truth is unity, because the pieces of the true jigsaw puzzle fit neatly together as one unit. It's a very powerful statement here. Yeah, they all should fit together. You understand? And so, and how you think about how the master teacher has had to come along and really try and knit that puzzle back together from the confusion caused by the bad information, poor translation of the sources in the last of information in the last 6,000 years, which effectively dominate the education of this planet. Means, as I say, that a lot of the ancient knowledge, which should have really helped to inform us in preparation to be outformed or transformed, has been lost, willfully and deliberately taken out, so that they could establish themselves as the authority, and by authority authentic. You understand? And so their symbol is one of fire, as they have burned down those original outformation into information sources that would challenge the birth of ignorance and the birth of mythology, leading on to these various different religions and their sects that have led to division and the chaos, as I say, that rules the world today. And still yet, as I say, who we are, where we came from, these simple basic questions that establish the foundation of who a person is, until the master teacher came along, until Wu-Sabat was reintroduced back to our people, still remains a mystery for many, understood, when it should be us saying my or our story, which is what mystery is really saying. Stuff that came before them, they don't want to acknowledge. They see it as a mystery. But as you know, through the phonetics of the word, that is mystery, is my story. Understood. Any questions?
Right. Let me just have a quick look. No, there's no questions. I'm currently in conversation with our previous person that asked questions, so you're okay to go on.
Okay. Has he got a question to ask?
It's not relevant to the class. You probably have to speak to him after.
All right, no problem. All right, so the symbol here we see, we've shown this many times before, for those who are new, the symbol of the Natharu, who are sons. So when you're visualizing in your mind, you see they are sons, yeah, overseers, they are sons, yeah. So this is what the proof is reestablishing, at least back in one's mind, to say, well, hey, hey guys, this is what you're looking at here. This is, they are sons. You should have a vivid image in your mind of who your ancestors are. And this is why, as I say, because sons are in that gaseous state, a higher level of vibration, and we have descended down from them, we are referred to as the descendants. We've descended down from that gaseous state and are terrestrial representations of the sun. So we see the Safaf, or hieroglyphic symbol. Safaf is a Sabbaic word to say hieroglyph, in the proper way. The word that it should have been called hieroglyph just means sacred writers. It's Greek, in proper tones, Safaf script is what we're talking about here. Now, So we've shown these images many times before, but I'm asking to look at now in the context of what we're talking about here in verse 2. You understand? Because the question should be in one's mind, maybe it should or may be in one's mind, well, what is the puzzle? Because a jigsaw obviously is a jigsaw piece. When you put those pieces together, it formulates a picture. Understood? And as it's being expressed there, fits together as one unit. So each piece, understood, should give a clue to what the whole picture is, understand? Because we understand our rules. And as we step through, we're going to demonstrate this in a bit more detail. I don't think we're going to get to cover today. We're going to demonstrate this in a bit more detail. Class is next week as well, so we'll continue next Sunday in that regard. But what do we see here? We see, again, us reminding you all on the call about the importance of 2 star constellations in particular that are prevalent to many cultures around the world, but very specifically, as I say, to us as the Kadem Mukhmatu, the ancient Egyptians. Yes, 2 star constellations in particular that you see time and time again reflected in our culture and reflected in our iconography, is that all the way our religious practice, everything you see these constellations through. Why? Because our DNA came from these star constellations. Yep. So we see here the depiction, at least, of the Orion star constellation, and here we see here in the to the south is the Sirius or Sirius star constellation. Understood? This is what they refer to as Orion's belt, or the 3 central stars. Yes, and here beneath those 3 central stars is the Orion Nebula, where the elements that led to water arriving on this planet by way of comets is from the Orion Nebula. As I say, when you look at the configuration of not Orion, but the way we draw it, with an upright pharaoh in a male body, so how he's shown anthropomorphically here with an apron, as I say, over his delivery device or phallus. Yes, you can see when we talk about water coming from here, you can see that the penis is a delivery device. Of course, delivers urine and semen in those regards, or different types of liquid. You can understand, well, okay, this is where water is coming from. Understood? Or one the source of water is coming from in the various different depictions as shown, symbolism that's shown in this regard. So you got to look kind of closely at what's taking place, and how certain clues have been left, and then why, as I say, certain star constellations are associated with certain buildings, architecture that we have constructed. You understand? So one may marvel, or many marvel, at the type of construction, and we should do as well. They marvel at the type of construction. They marvel at the way it was done. They wonder how it was done. But for you as their children, for you as the descendants, you have to ask, well, why was it done? Yeah, so once we get over our understanding of who, then we need to understand, well, why was it done? What message is being expressed here? So why would they retain a link, excuse me, to constellations and stars, which, as I say, a normal human being will never ever reach in their lifetime? Do you understand? So looking at what is taking place, as I say, verse 2 is giving us an insight into what's the big picture, or what is the picture that putting the pieces of the jigsaw together is giving us insight into. Yes? And even in our Partek Yud that we read earlier, we talk about part and all, part and whole. So the question is, are you one of those pieces of the jigsaw that make the big picture? Question to think about. So you see here that one of the constellations connected to the pyramids, in fact, on the right-hand side of the right chamber, if you look at it from a front-end profile, we see that the connection, as people know, the King's Chamber pointing to the Orion star constellation at one point 10,500 years ago, Queen's Chamber pointing to the Sirius star constellation. But on the other side, we see it pointing to the Draco star constellation. You understand? And interesting to see the depiction of Draco, if you see here, as the stars are pictured. Okay, for those who can see. Now, so you see there's Cyrus or Sirius, some say. So we look at these pictures, and so we always see that those clues were there right in front of us about what's being expressed in the proof. We just wasn't paying attention to what was being expressed. Yeah, we were always speculating who is God, what is God, this, that, etc. To at least to us, yes, when the clues were right there in our face. You understand? But as we know, ignorance means to ignore the facts. Ignorance is to ignore the facts. So you know how it is, and we've expressed this before. Yeah, when you don't know something, yeah, then you can ignore it. You're not aware of it. Maybe don't give its importance or pay attention to it. So in order to bring you out of that mindset, somebody has to really teach you first. Understand? But in teaching, obviously there's a teacher, but there has to be some acceptance of what's being expressed by the student. Understand? So they knew what they were doing when they ran up ahead and compromised or made the job of the one who was to bring the truth to us in this day and time a lot more difficult. And how many teachers had to sacrifice, along the way to help or eradicate that ignorance, or to plant seeds, at least in the subconscious minds of Nagaru there, so that us even now would be ready, all of us being connected by this morphogenetic field that surrounds the planet, which the planet plugs into and we all plug into, that seeds would be left, that, you understand, those genetic explosions would be a lot more meaningful and create the necessary sound or foundation, strong foundation necessary for us to be able to walk back from faith, belief, and ignorance into actual facts, understood, proof, confirmation in this day and time as a new spirituality for us. Belief is ignorance. It's acceptance of things that we do not know. More importantly, now you see belief is falsehood, and belief is now division has been the opposite of unity, because belief creates separation. Well, I believe, or in my opinion, in my this. Well, what's the facts? Because there's only various one source of truth, or there's one fact, not saying in a subject. Yeah, this is where we get agreement. Yeah, on many different subjects. Or we don't get agreement because people don't want to accept facts or truth. But the fact of the matter is, it exists. And if it's the best form of knowledge, being fact or being truth, then we should seek the best form of knowledge. We should seek to know things, not believe things. Yeah, when we can know. Now, when you can know, why would you believe? So we're in a day and time where the fight is for information, as they refer to it as. Yeah, the fight is for information. Who controls information, even data and various other things, but who controls information? Controls the people. Yeah, we're not doing it for control. We're seeking, as I say, to transform. We're seeking to eradicate the ignorance that's held us back for the last 6,000 years because we didn't know who we were. But yeah, as I say, the clues right in front of us. He wasn't looking in the right place because the Makasu, the Moadamu, you understand, the Caucasian told you, stay away from that. That's evil. You understand? That's not for you. While he was doing the exact opposite. Stay away from masonry. Stay away from ancient Egypt. That's paganism. Stay away from masonry. That's devil worship. All the while he's delving in, while he's in there spending billions of pounds, while he's using masonry or fraternal rules to run the world, keeping you believing, keeping you in a state of ignorance. Yeah, until one came along to call them out on the yes, for lack of a better word, saying one thing and doing something else. Yeah, or hypocrisy. You understand? From Hippocrates. You understand? Yeah. So we see here, so their Hippocrates is Hippocratic. Our Hippocrates takes you back to the hippo, understood, which takes you back to Pataret. Yeah, the hippopotamus deity. Yeah, which ties us back into who we are. Mammals who are also reptilians. You understand? The river horse, Africa. Now, the foundation of everybody. So their myth, behind their myth, yeah, when we eliminate that, obviously, and push it out the way, then we're seeking facts, confirmation, proof. So, I've shown these time and time before, but as I say, you see the clues. Yeah, you see the sun. Yeah, you see the symbolism. And so we didn't even have the opportunity to connect with this at one time, yet to even look and see, well, what's the importance of that symbol? Why the sun? Of course we know, or we feel we know, but do we really acknowledge it? Do we really walk out to say every morning, every day, when we step outside in the night and just say, well, look up and just say, hey, thank you. You understand? Tawatak. Whatever. You understand? Give praise, give thanks for life, for existence. No, we don't do that. And we're quick to give the credit to others who don't deserve it. There's no proof that God created the planet. There's no proof. There's no proof, understood, that Allah created anything. There's no proof that Yahweh created anything. Where is the proof? But yet, as we will explore, how many billions of people in the existence of the planet have died over these fake arguments? Yet the very thing that we can feel, you understand, every day of our lives, we can feel it. When we walk outside, you can feel the sun. And you would certainly feel if it wasn't there. This reality we don't accept. We put myth over reality. We accept others' cultures over our own. This is not the pathway for confirmation or to confirmation. Yeah, and so as our very hard-headed people, and we teach that to butt against our ignorance, yeah, where they're simply trying to point us to the path of redemption for us. Do you understand? Resurrection, understand, from that mental death that we've been facing, as I say, more acutely in the last 400 years, but certainly over the last 6,000 years. It's trying to ready us for nature's renewal. Yeah, the end of the 24,000 year cycle, and move us back to truth, move us back to order as opposed to chaos and falsehood. So we see here these symbols have always been there in our iconography, and in previous classes we've gone over this in a lot of detail. So again, things that you thought were evil, things that you thought were negative, things that you thought were foreign to you, you find in your culture as being the progenitors, as being the starters of symbolism in this regard, and symbolism associated particularly with the sun. You understand? As we see here, snake with its tail in its mouth, a symbol of what? Self-generation. Do you understand? Regeneration. In that regard. Yeah. The whole, one would describe as given birth to many parts. So, all others use what we ignore. So, say, whilst they're condemning X, Y, Z as being while they're condemning that to being paganism and all these different terminologies and titles, black supremacist, and all these negative titles to keep us away from that which, as I say, they stole in a sense. So they would see themselves as opposite to what the ancient Egyptians were teaching. They would see that as paganism because there's you see there in the Torah that the Africans or the Egyptians, they tied into the vine to give them their story some validity, some foundation by using Africa, which is a real place, existed, and tying themselves in to say, well, this prophet went there, that prophet went there, interacting with a place that's real to give their stories, their mythological stories, some root or foundation. Understand? And then use our symbols, understood, in a way where you see the importance, as I say, of the sun in each of these different organizations or religions, using it as a foundation, because obviously, clearly, this is where life originates. Yes? So that which they know is the source, the true source, is the deity that everybody seems to have been seeking, has been right there in their faces. But if you say, worship the sun, they'll call you a paganist. Yeah, or pagan, certainly, maybe in the old use of the term, not in the modern way the youth use it today. You understand? So you see a star in all of these different religions and even in the organizations, as I say, we see our symbols in the sense, or the use of the sun as a symbol within organizations. Where did it originate first? You understand? And when we use a symbol, we wasn't worshipping the sun hoping crops would grow. We wasn't worshipping the sun hoping it would do X, Y, Z. We understood that we were the sun. You understand? Or our sons. Our ancestors are sons. And we recognize the sun in us also. Yeah? As we see from the symbol there. Yeah? Outformation, in the sense, outformational ancestors, in the sense, informing that informational present being. And the messages that we are receiving from the sun, on a moment by moment basis. Any questions?
No questions at this time.
Okay. So we see here again, and this is explored in the proof. I say many times that people have seen these. But in the Bible of the Mordamu, as I say, even there, right in your face, yeah, these quotes, some very different quotes here. Yeah, whilst the speculation, turning God into as they would call it, turn their God into some invisible entity, but in actuality, their books are saying exactly what they perceived God to be. Understood? But giving the impression of turning this deity or being into some kind of spirit entity, that they could then replace those images with those of their own. You understand? Beings that look like them, prophets that look like them, angels that look like them. You understand? Depictions of God that look like them. So they turned it away from the original, gave it this ghost appearance, understood? Made it invisible, so they could then come back later with movies, their artistry, so on and so forth, and then rewrite, you understand, what those real or true images were. They can't go away from their own books. You understand? So Psalms 84:11, we see Lord God is what? A sun, S-U-N, sun, Shamash, you understand? And a shield. Isaiah 60:19, the sun shall be no more the light shall be no more, thy light by day, neither for their brightness shall be the moon. Give the light unto thee, but the Lord shall be thee an everlasting light, and thy God thy glory. Now, in this day and time, what was light? Yeah, there's no incandescent and fluorescent lighting back then, not in Europe. Yeah, in ancient Africa, very different. In ancient, as Kadem Matu, the ancient Egyptians, he had, you understand, incandescent lighting, but they did not. So when they talk about light, remember it means fire. Here, Malachi chapter 4, verse 2, very famous quote: "Unto you that fear my name, the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings." It's an S-U-N son. Nowhere do you find this iconography, or you find it first where? In ancient Africa. You find it prevalent within the most advanced, you understand, technological society the world has ever seen. You understand? Even to today. Understood? So, I mean, worship, what day is it today that class is on? And that's supposed to seemingly the so-called religious day for a lot of people during the week. Yeah, where they worship. And the Quran doesn't even get away with it itself either. Yes, we see here in Quran 24:35, yeah, Surah 24, Ayatul 35. We see the source, Allah, is Nur, the light of Al-Samawat, skies, Al-Ard, yeah, the planet, key, or earth, yeah, right translation. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth, or the light of the heavens and the earth is the sun, or many suns. So this is what the proof is leading us to say, well, hey, look, yeah, this is where the foundation of all this stuff really came from. So as we've stepped away from the real, as we've stepped away in ignorance because the sources of knowledge, you understand, were destroyed or burned down, so others could establish themselves. Others wanted the deity to be in their image and after their likeness. They didn't want to bow down, understood, to the true deities of this planet, yeah, and to create their own sources of knowledge and then claim to be the original, claim to be this, claim to be that, without proof, without evidence, without facts. The Muslims claim to be first, but their book was clearly birthed from Christianity. Christianity was birthed from Judaism. Judaism was birthed from what? Sumerianism. You understand? So we see here, they don't want to deal with what came before, but want to claim to be the first. They claim to be right, claim to be the holy, claim to be X, Y, Z, but where's the proof? So we've shown this many times before, but it's to give you some perspective to understand that when this light of the heaven and the earth, or these suns, are tremendous in size, and certainly worthy of worship. We were worshipping, but worthy of worship in comparison to what their descriptions, only in man's imagination, of what they consider their gods, or they give the acclaim to their gods of what they should or should not be doing. You understand? And ignore their own power in favor of some mythological entity that no one has seen, as I say, certainly for several thousand years since the biblical times ended. All of a sudden, God is absent. He's done a runner. And to be returning at some point in the future, but where is he now? Where is he now? So he was visible at one time, flexing with the people, in touch with the people directly. Now, and all of a sudden, at a certain point, just disappeared. Yeah, and the problem is that we're going to continue, or they will continue, not me personally, but they will continue, or our people in the state of ignorance will continue to wait and wait because they do not understand what that deity or what that God concept was really based upon. let's say certain points we see Halley's Comet in the night sky. Then it disappears. Understood? And 70 odd some years later, yeah, when it comes back around and its orbit is near to the planet, it's visible again. Yeah, so the visible and absent God is dealing with orbits. Yeah, what is visible from the Earth and at certain points, and what is not, due to rotation on the Earth's axis, due to it orbiting around a central star or body referred to as the sun. So we see things in orbit or visible at certain points, and they disappear. If we really understand what's going on. So, how many planet Earths could you fit inside the sun? What answers in the chat? How many? 30 seconds to do that. How many times does the sun fit inside? How many planet Earths? Yeah, 24,896 miles in circumference. How many planet Earths could you fit inside the sun? Yeah, give you 10 seconds, look that up. Or guess. Anyway, anybody out there? Is there anybody out there?
Yeah, the chat. I'm out here.
Okay, well, more the audience, but thank you.
All right.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, divine feminine.
Somebody's put 1.3 million.
1.3 million. 1.3 million times. Yeah, some vary. 1.2, some say. Understand? So it vary. 1.3 million times. Think about that. Of 24,000, is that what? 12. You just go straight across in diameter. You're looking at 12 to 13,000, but 24,000, this big, 24,000 circumference. 1.3 million of that fits inside the sun. As the picture obviously clearly probably gives some indication to. But the Earth to us is tremendous in size, from our proximity. But to think about the sun being, you understand, that significant in size, and it being relatively a small sun in comparison. Yes, a small sun. It's considered to be a small sun in the holy tablets. It's a relatively small sun, but tremendous to us. Understood? Is this not worthy of our attention? Yeah, for what we know it does, but yet we ignore it in favor of myths. Right? The clues have always been there. Yeah. The question you have to ask yourself: how come we couldn't see it? Yeah, always been there. Shown this many times before, obviously, because now you understand visibly that your ancestors or the Panapara is talking about sons. Yeah, and that your sons, or our son, as bigger brothers and sisters, relatives. Understood? And as I say, excuse me, this is just showing you, even in the it's also showing us really that basically even in the Orion star constellation, yeah, we look at the sort of size of the sun in this, and it appears the way it appears because obviously us looking at Earth, looking upwards. Always must remember that when we're looking at these pictures. Oh, that's Sahu, or that's this. Yeah, it's because we're looking at how it depicts itself from a person standing on the planet Earth looking up. So we have to remember that's not necessarily how it looks. Yeah, that's how it looks to us from a certain perspective. Yeah. So this is the sun, and this you start to see. This thing that fits the Earth in it 1.2, 1.3 million times over, and then we look at the other suns simply either in the Orion star constellation or associated with Orion. We see how massive. These Nefaru Betelgeuse in particular. Yeah, absolutely tremendous in size. in comparison, as I say, yes, to our other stars. Yeah? And the energy that these, the tremendous amounts of energy that these Nefaru or sons are outputting, understood, many of which, as I say, reach us here on the planet Earth. But through our ignorance, as I say, we're not able to interpret the many messages that are being gifted from the cosmos. You understand? Which is what? Is this not the clues that, that our ancestors are explaining or expressing to us? We're right in our faces that there are messages being received. Yeah, obviously the message of life being carried, but what else is being carried or conveyed? To shape, inform, you understand, who we are, yeah, and eliminate the ignorance. And how continually there are things in this society that simply want to put a barrier, yes, between us and our relationship to the sun. Now, if you think about it, clothes, being in the wrong environment. Yeah, but the fact we have to wear clothes. Our skin can't be our clothing because of the introduction of lust into the environment. So you think about all the things, that's just one, you understand? But you think about all the things that seek to get in the way of your relationship with the sun. Your 9-to-5 job, if you don't work outside, in an office, for survival. How many things get in the way of your relationship to the sun? Us being in the wrong part of the planet, some of us. So depletes our powers, gets in the way of our transformation. The sun is shining, doesn't stop shining. Doesn't stop giving. There was a discussion earlier about giving. It doesn't stop giving. The issue is we're not always receiving. And we wonder why we're weak. Spiritually, physically, economically, why we're weak. How many more things are we going to allow to get in the way of our relationship to the sun? And how they want to block, isn't it? They want to block the relationship even with what they call or expecting, isn't it? That son of righteousness, or the Nabab, that would come, you understand, and give us that black light, which they want to block us receiving the light from the sun. To aid our transformation. Yeah, some have made it their job, to keep us in ignorance. Yeah, to keep us from receiving that black light as we would have it. So we understand. So this we were talking about this jigsaw, and I think the brother Gibab asked us to go through this back over again, because he said we probably did it a bit quickly the first time. But remember, excuse me, we are interested in what the picture is, isn't it? So we're exploring, well, what's the picture that when we put all these pieces together, I'm not saying we're going to have the answer in this class today, but what we are saying is, hey, there's clues out there. Let's pay attention to them so that we can garnish what this picture is. Do you understand? And how the master teacher has been what? Putting that picture together for us, obviously, since he came and incarnated, or since he was born in 45, then now came in teaching in 63, as in putting that picture together for us, guided by his pen, guided by our ancestors, the Nabab. Yeah, so let's break it down. See here, it talks about the from and of omniverse all into the universe the all, and what's being expressed here. So we talked to you before to express to say that okay, it goes one universe, we go two dual verses, three triverses, four quadverses, yeah, five pentaverses, six hexaverses, yeah, seven verses. That's the ancient or old English word for seven. You go 8 octaverses, and then we go 9, we go multiverses. You understand? Yes? So, and we expressed, remember in that previous class, that one, or the symbolism in one, is really uniform. So the one form, or the whole, yeah, it's no real such thing as number one, but it represents whole, the whole form. You understand? And then 0, remember, it equals version. 0, remember, was not part of our number system in that regard. It came in with the Anunnaki. And so to us, when somebody writes 10, with a 1 and a 0 next to it, it represents 1. Understood? If somebody writes 100, 1,000, a million, etc., etc., but it still represents 1 as a real. 0 is version. Yeah, so when we write the number down, it can go left to the right. Yeah, we see it here. Oops, detail. Yeah, so when we're writing 10, or when they write 10, remember that it's going what? From 1 there into the physical. Because hydrogen is the first point of physical existence. They have it down to 99, you understand? And it's the world of some things, SUM things, but is atomic matter, or as the master helpfully helps us out there, quite lighted matter. You understand? So when we go that direction, so to speak, yeah, and you're looking at 10, we're looking at obviously here where energy on this side is becoming matter or material in that respect. Understood? Then we are getting different versions of it. You're looking at energy transforming from one thing into the next, and we go from the periodic table. Understood? Yes, from hydrogen to helium, so on and so forth. You're looking at energy in transition, understand, into obviously various forms of or degrees of matter, understand, which we call lighted matter or something, understand, as opposed to when we go left now to 0, 1, yes, then we're talking about antimatter, yes, on into dark matter, yeah, because you can't see it. But this is the foundation of existence. Do you understand? So the ultimate, the uniform is the one represented who? Mother. You understand? So M other, remember, mother, M other, the one, remember, as we showed you before, 1, understand, as they have it, isn't it? The M is a Roman numeral for 1,000. Do you understand? It ties into the hieroglyph for the Safat, for the owl. You understand? Yes? Representing 1,000, perfect number. M other. No zeros. Saying off of there are versions, isn't it? If you look at ourselves in the birthing stage, we go through first trimester, do you understand? Reptilian. Then second trimester, grey, and then third trimester, obviously, as a human being on water, creature in that regard, you understand, ready to be born. So we go through 3 different versions of ourselves, all off of the original. You understand? Obviously, we take it back to existence, then it's space, matter, and time, isn't it? You understand? 1 represents the uniform, yeah, the singular form, the whole. So it's important for us to understand when we're looking at these, obviously these clues, you understand, about what the bigger picture is, or the grand plan is. Yeah, what these pieces of this jigsaw puzzle amalgamate to. Yeah, the picture it's forming. And each individual, obviously, we're using this doctrine or the balag, the message of Yaanuwn, must use it and pick the pieces, isn't it? Put the pieces of the puzzle together for themselves. So that you obtain confirmation. You're no longer a believer. Okay, somebody has sought confirmation. Yeah, which is when we think about that Partak Yud, how it's so has many degrees. It's simple, but yet layered. Yeah, to what it applies to, and how it's taken us, many, many decades, to declutter, understood, unravel the foolishness that was created in our minds that made that which was simple appear complex. Unknowable, unfathomable. Designed to cause confusion, which is what their books have done. Chaos, when order should have reigned. Yeah, so ultimately, from a certain point of view or perspective, of course, chaos exists with order, but even chaos, as it has its purpose, understood, is within Papa Ut, understood, is still within. It's not outside of it. So it's still a part of the whole. But it either must be controlled or ignored. You understand? So we can see the makeup, yeah, of what this picture, as I say, looks like. Or the jigsaw puzzle, how it fits together. How it's coordinated. Yeah, irrespective of what the thing is. You understand? So we share the characteristics of the planet. We share the characteristics of the universe. We share the characteristics of the solar system. Yeah, as above, so below. So I'm describing as. Any questions? Any questions on this specifically as well, if it's understood?
There is a question about, you were talking about the stars or suns, and there's a question from Anonymous that asks, what's the difference between a 5-pointed star and a 6-pointed star?
Well, stars don't have points, so clearly it's symbolism there. Generally, if you think about male to female, and you think about the extremities of a male, yes? So you go head, yeah, your 2 arms, yeah, your 2 legs, and your 3rd legs, you get 6 points. If you think about female, she doesn't have the tubal cane or the 3rd leg. So you'd have 5 points or 5 extremities in that regard. So that's the difference. Any other questions?
No other questions currently.
No.
So you see here, so we're getting to understand, or we're seeking to understand what these pieces of the puzzles are, because what is expressed to us? It's unity, it's truth, yeah, it's confirmation for us, yeah, which is what truth is, yeah, to unravel what the real thing is that we're looking at. And as we've expressed many times, they want us focused on the light, which is really to them fire. Yeah, but the truth of existence is darkness. The truth of us is darkness. But it has a negative connotation, clearly in the English language, understood, but the suns are birthed out of the darkness. The sun in itself is not yellow, but rather it is black, for those who really know the truth. Yeah, the black sun. Yeah, the black light. Yeah, and how we've been always able to see in the dark. We were never afraid of the dark. Our eyes are designed to see better in darkness than they are in light. And when you analyze the rods and the cones on our retina. Yeah, so it's the one, we ignore the darkness. But the Sabian, the Musbatu, you understand, the Nagaru, the Negroid, black man, black woman, black man, should not be ignorant of the darkness. You were designed, or you were birthed out of the darkness so we can see in the dark. We should not be ignorant, but we know that the woman represented the darkness, and the society doesn't want to give her credit, you understand, for birthing us. It accepts it, but it doesn't give it credit. Yeah, it doesn't give it credit. Yeah, and the master teacher has been what? Trying to take us out of the deficit into credit as a people. Yeah? Because when you're in credit, things can happen. When you're in deficit, it's difficult. When you're in credit, what do they say? You're in the black. Yeah, so we don't even want to give the credit to those who help us to get in credit. Think about the craziness of that. We don't give the credit to those who want to put us in credit. Yeah, who are trying to correct the deficits in our lives. We hate on them. So we destroy them. It was one of the maxims, I think, the brother Harat and Nabab, Defrei Hatat read earlier. And say, if you're popular, what's going to happen? Popular for helping people. What's going to happen to you? They're going to try and destroy you. It's what we do as black people to each other because of the spell, because of the invasion into our genetics. Yeah, the modern genetics inside of us. Constantly working against unity. Yeah, because they are the birth and the chaos, birth of chaos, and the fathers and daughters, or mothers, and daughters and sons of myth, mythology, lies. Love myth. You love myth. Yeah, and don't want you to be a part of that. They get mad. And so get mad. Yeah, one black person, even a mixed race person in Lord of the Rings, they get mad. That's our stuff. But we don't wash for months. There's no showers. That's our stuff. You can't be a part of it. They get mad. Yeah. Hey, there's a black woman who's a starship captain. Hate that stuff. The mythology, all that stuff. But, hey. It is what it is. We need to learn to create our own stories. Yeah, because as we expressed in the class previously, yeah, if you were to draw on a pole, and draw on a pole, and place movies on that pole, probably one end, if you looked at positive representation versus the other end of the pole, exploitation and humiliation. You understand? Most movies, most television, almost all movies, almost all television, if you were to place them on that pole between positive representation, you understand, being to a positive mindset versus exploitation and humiliation, most of the media representation would be on that end of the pole, nearer to the exploitation and the humiliation end. Even ones that we've made. Yeah, because the way the system wants to inflict pain, you understand, because they feed off of our pain. Yeah, derive energy from our pain, our death. Understand? But obviously now, you understand, we find solace, peace, calm, tranquility, yeah, in the confirmation of who we are, in truth. The truth will help make us free. That's what they say. You understand? So they're giving you the, in their book, they're giving you the code, let's say, of how to come from under their rulership, perceived rulership, let's say. Yeah? So our strength is in our unity. Unity, according to the proof, by way of Nabab Yaanuwn, is truth. Yeah, putting the piece of the puzzle together. You understand? Understanding what part you play in all of this. So let's look at more of these pieces of the puzzle. So we can see here this interesting thing about the Sirius star constellation and the fact that one of our excuse me, a group of our ancestors, Dogon people of Mali, you understand, who are offshoots or descendants from us as ancient Egyptians who just migrated from Egypt. Excuse me, migrated from Egypt and settled in Mali. We can see here, as I say, depiction of the orbit of the three stars in this is depicted Sirius B, but we understand Sirius A and Sirius C, obviously they're in a binary star system that, as I say, once was a tri-star system, and Sirius C is actually still there today. You understand? Yeah. So binary in a sense, obviously, because you've got A and B interlinked together, but Sirius C is still there also. You understand? Now, the interesting thing about this is that when we look at there, what do we see? We see, okay, well, look at what that looks like. Now, you were then taught, I'm just going to jump forward just for a second. Yeah, what? The origins in our story, not in his story, but in our story, what do we see here? That life here, or our ancestors, understand, the Natharu and Riskians came here and seeded life here, understand, many millions of years ago. And for the last ice age, we set up a base here on a place called Egg Island. You understand? So let's just for a second, let's take a look at it if we can do. So bear with me 1 second. Switch my screen. So let's look and see. Yeah, so we think about that shape that we were just looking at, yes? Relating to the Sirius star constellation. And then I'm going to go to this place called Egg Island, if you can do. So it might be a little bit jerky on your screen. We see this place here, Egg Island. Can you see that? Moderator's just check. Can you see the screen? Egg Island showing.
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you for confirming. So we see this depiction of this Egg Island. So Sirius star constellation, where female DNA comes from, and then we've got the Orion star constellation, where male DNA comes from. But obviously our origin, the bridge between the 18th and 19th galaxies, we know is by way of the Sirius star constellation, and we see a certain shape of Sirius B's orbit. We'd see it looks like an egg. You understand? And if you look at or study Dogon culture, understood, they talk about the egg significantly throughout their understanding, let's say, of how creation came about. And what do we see? We see when it comes down to Earth, we see here what? Yeah. In our story, this place called Egg Island, out Antarctica, so before the last ice age, was in actuality, do you understand, a fertile land, which is why obviously there's so much contention now around it from various different countries around the world, because they know under the ice is an abundance of natural resources, fuel, etc., energy, minerals that they can turn, obviously, into energy. So they want control of this area in this place. Which obviously has been under ice for the last 50 or so thousand years. So this is what we're talking about when we look at these pieces of the puzzles. This interconnectivity in something that we see, or this relationship that we see, this correlation that we see between in our story being here in the environment. So the interesting thing is, when we're using story, we find evidence and clues of it in reality. When they're using the word story, the evidence and the clues are only in their books, only in their imagination, only in what they have copied or stolen from others. Never origin, never confirmation, never sound. And so when we say sound, sound is in solid foundation, right, and can be reasoned. Their stuff doesn't make sense, but our stuff can be reasoned. We can see a flow, we can see correlation, proof and confirmation. There's stuff, there's realness behind our symbolism, tying back into natural nature. Yeah, so our story, you're seeing the confirmation in the design. Yeah. So we're seeing it here. We go back and we look. We see, this is interesting. Yeah, just the way things look or how they appear to be. In terms of the orbit on a picture, clues, you understand, that these sons are informing their descendants about. Before any prophets, before any holy books, before any of this, in the divine design, the clues are there. Understood? Any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay. So we understand the origin of the Sirius star constellation and the Segui every 60 years. And as I say, the fact that, modern day instrumentation and the fact these Africans, ancient Africans, had a solid understanding, solid scientific understanding of the movement of these stars. Yeah, the question that Westerners don't want to ask themselves is where did they get it from? You understand? But the question we should be asking ourselves is who gave it to them? Who informed us? Because we were informed, yeah? But who gets the credit? Yeah, who gets the credit? So they take the credit while those individuals are left in the dark. You understand? Considered what? Third world. But then what? Your first world? I informed you about the science. You got it from me, but I'm third world. That's what you'd like me to be. But the facts don't support it. If you're copying your stuff from my stuff, then how can I be third? Stuff to think about. So, this is showing us here, Nabta player. It's showing us here, obviously the movement of, as it's showing there, the Orion star constellation. But it's showing the fact that how long have we been around for? That we had sophisticated tools to track the movements of, again, this constellation that's of so much interest to our people. Sahu, or Sahat, some say. We've been tracking its movement It has great importance to us. Yeah, but only since really, in this day and time at least, has the context, has its importance, its proper importance, been reset for us, by the one sent to us from our ancient ancestors. So we can understand once again, not only its importance, but build other structures and monuments in this day and time that we have control over. But our power is being restored back to us once again. Understand? So bringing new maps, but acknowledging what came before us. Okay, so the question is, why are we tracking these things? What's its relevance? What's its importance? And to them, it's an interesting museum piece. Yeah, to them, it's something. It forms a nice documentary. It forms nice to know things. Yeah, to us, that's who we are. But society won't let you or let you know. It will keep you in ignorance about the fact that you have a genetic link to these monuments, to these designs, to the context of why it was built in the first place, to the context of why it was tracked in the first place. As you see, particularly in books like Lost Records of Time, its relevance to our transformation, to understand an ability, should things get beyond repair, to leave here. So, we see the importance of, as I say, in this modern time, of this star constellation. And see the one that was sent to us is Nabab, Yaanuwn, this Nabab Reye Akhtar, had the combination of both sides, you understand, of the Anunnaki side, as well as the Riskian side, in order to deal with the nature of the beings he was sent to. You understand? Because of intermixing with the Anunnaki, or certain groups of extraterrestrials, that polluted our genes from the original. You understand? To know exactly, one, how to deal with our rebellious nature in order to bring us back in order and make us once worthy to be acknowledged as children of the Nefaru once again. Now, I want to step into something, move forward. I don't have much time for today, just because it's like late starting. But we're going to explore that context, the relationship between or why Sirius is important, you understand? And how, as I say, that link or golden thread. So it's a bit of a reminder, as an introductory or part one class, we step into more detail. So you have some understanding of this thread, you understand, that links us back to the original, you understand, and why these that correlation, it doesn't just sit there for us to look for externally. If we were to look internally, we would see the same correlation. And obviously understand as well our part in all of this, you understand, and why we're being called they're supreme beings, not just our egotistical statements, but because we have a link to the very origin of things. And let's explore that, the world of things, in more detail once again in part two. And the repetitiveness that you see is to make it stick home in all of our minds. Can we really see what is being shown? Yeah, we say no one told me, but yet we don't see how close certain things were right there in front of us. We don't see how our ancestors are right there with us. Are we taking the time to conversate with them? Are we taking the time to put certain burdens or tasks upon them to improve our lives, to ensure that we have the appropriate protection in this society? Because once you're aware, the focus becomes upon you. So therefore, you need all of your armor in place to move accordingly. We know how spiritually powerful our ancient ancestors were. 100. Yeah, this is from Tones, Vibrational Energies, Actual Facts. It's number 18. So say 100. only mind can perceive subatomic structure as those of ether and mind, therefore must be outside of the brain. Mind is a power created by higher beings and made part of the human experiences called mental. So, interesting way of describing it. So we can see here that when we talk about mind, yes, we understand that we are linked to the mental, and the individual portion of the mental that we are linked to, which our ka'a causes a direct link, understand, enables us to download our connection to the mental. Yeah, that word mind is really with the, if you place the E with the D at the end, you say mind. And so my individual portion of that mental reservoir. So my access point. So, and even the whole tablets in the 7th chapter, remember it describes us projecting an aspect of ourselves from the mental downwards, and when it's perceived on the 4th plane of existence, it's referred to as soul. So one of the ways that we see the soul, one of the ways it's seeing the soul is describing, isn't it, our connection, our direct connection to the mental. It's the emotional aspect of us, we understand that, but it's also describing our connection to the mental, which is why a person can lose it, if you understand that, or lose their soul, and then have it restored or regained. Yes, because it's describing that connection, understand, to the mental, with a real aspect of true, or a real aspect to us. Yeah? Remember, when a person is not in control of their decision making, then that's when one loses their soul. Yeah, so if we are subservient to external factors around ourselves which govern our decision making, for example, like somebody being addicted to drugs, drink, or addicted to anything in that regard, then we're not in control of our decision making. We've given over control to somebody else. Therefore, we've lost our soul. So you can think of us being enslaved to somebody else, or under somebody else's religion, thinking in somebody else's mind, then we are not soulful people, because we're imitating and being in the image and after likeness of somebody else. So this connection, or this pathway back to our higher beings or higher ancestors, is something that was created. Now bear that in mind. So 101. Now bear in mind, Musbatu, that the resonance of this planet Earth we call Yaanuwn is the same 0 to 40 Hz spectrum as the human mind. Correlation again. 102. The same mind is linked to the mental abode that is constantly emitting signals into the environment. Around these signals are much more than just waves. They become also particles, that is matter. Understand? So we understand, as I say, energy, understand, moving in straight lines, understood, yeah, are particles in moving. Understand? Obviously, we touched upon last week that, you know, the world of things is causing, or dark matter, understand, is restricting the speed of these light waves, but also, as I say, causing them to move in ways because they're waves, as opposed to straight lines, because it causes them to vibrate. You understand? Now, mental energy or mental particles, interesting enough, move much faster than light. You understand? As we read on, you'll see that. Now, 103. Just as you see stars, Najamat, in the sky, night sky, as little lights flickering billions of light years away, 104, and a light year is how far light can travel in 1 year, be it solar 365 or lunar. As light travels at speed of 186,274.5 feet per second, that makes 1 light year around 6 trillion miles away from Earth. 105. And Najamat or stars are billions of light years away. 106. Many of these Najumat are no longer there. When you look up at the night sky, they are stars that have died. 107. Yet you can still see Parnawur, the light. 108. You know this light to be wave matter particle. This was discussing. Now 109. You also know by seeing a light now that has died years ago, yet it is continued life of that Najam. It is the continued life of that Najum, star or Kakab, that you see. 110. You yourself, as a part of the laws of chaos, is thought and order, Ma'at, are no different from those stars. You are made no different from those stars. You are made up of the exact same atoms, cells, element of light, life, energy. 111. You are putting out signals which will continue as wave matter particles even after you have died. Each of you have their own zero time reference of existence, unique to each other, as each Huminu and each Humimu has their own zero time reference. Once a sound is made, it never really dies, only changes in volume or vibration and tone. Understand? Now, up exactly, yeah. We went through zero time reference in some detail in the last class. Make sure we put that out shortly so we can get into that in some detail. Yeah. So, but this is that's our true point of existence. Yeah, when we came in, yeah, at the point of inception as opposed to conception. Understand? So 3 months before, we have inception before conception, where we are birthed mentally first before we're here physically. Concerned, creating circumstances that allow the soul, the Ka'ah, to come through and build, obviously, from there. 112. All of creation of life is life waves that pass down in vibration to the Khemenu Ogdoads, underwater soundness, to the Sabbetu, Enneads who came out onto land. Yes, these are probably some older titles being used, but obviously remember we were in the waters first. Just talked about Egg Island there, where us was placed in the waters. We were mermen, merwomen, understood, and then got thrust onto land by way of tsunamis, and the women came out first because they had larger lungs than the men, and then were able to, or the males, and were able to breathe in less dense air, as we would have underwater. As say, we started down in the Okavango swamp in South Africa, and having those genes or seed been placed in the Indian Ocean, so by way of an egg-shaped craft that came here, deposited those germs in the water. Now, interesting enough, there's some movie out there, it's prequel to the one Alien movies that shows an interesting view of that.
Nabab Kakni Hess, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can still see the graphic of the Egg Island. I don't know whether that's deliberate or the screen is stuck.
Looks like the screen is stuck, which is a bit of a problem. Okay. Strange. Okay. Is that back?
No, it isn't. I can still see the Egg Island.
Okay. Okay. You see in the
grand plan, that's what I can see.
Okay, let's just have to redo that. Okay, so sorry, so you didn't see any of the serious correlation of those slides, though?
I think this was, let's have a look. Can you go to the one before? Yeah, I saw that. I saw those ones.
You didn't see these slides when I was talking?
No, not this time around.
Understood. No problem. We just track it over the class next week. So, yeah, I think we were just making the point that when you look at the Egg Island and we look at the depiction of the Sirius star constellation, then it's shaped like an egg as well. So that correlation is there in that design. Understood? We're seeing these things replicated, telling a story to us. Their existence is telling us a story. You understand? Which, as I say, part of Nabab Yaanuwn is putting those pieces of the jigsaw together for us, you understand, in various different scrolls. And we know why it was pieced together in that way, not in something describe it in a linear, what they might describe as logical way, is because you know also who's watching and who wants to understand our story, who wants to understand and follow and stop our transformation, who wants to block the light of the sun. Do you understand? Who wants to block the knowledge, the black light being imparted from us, from the master. You understand? So the knowledge had to be put out sporadically in different ways. The number system doesn't necessarily correlate to what people may perceive the number system to be, but part of an organized plan, as I say, to remove the spell from our people. Okay, so any questions?
Yes, there's a question here that says that I think Manthu has actually put an answer to it, but I thought I'd ask it anyway. What is the correlation between stars and suns? Are they one and the same?
Yeah, it's just the fact that they are one and the same. It's just the fact that oftentimes the words we refer to the sun 93 million miles away as the sun because it's relevant to us, and then we often use the words. Well, we don't, but the society uses the word stars and suns interchangeably. But stars are suns and suns are stars. Yeah, in that regard, it's just at certain times when we're talking about our sun, which is the one 93 million miles away. Then we may refer to it as we refer to it as a sun, as opposed to referring to it as our star. If that makes sense. Yeah, but just in terms of the words, they are the same. The only difference maybe is the fact that when somebody's using the word sun, really, and I think we did touch upon there when we were looking at the last thing we were just reading there, that the word sun, remember, became interchangeable with the S-O-N sun and the S-U-N sun. You understand? So they became interchangeable. Where in religion, the sun, S-U-N sun, became the S-O-N sun. So if you look at their Jesus story, or most of the stories around their prophets, even their stories, they relate to cosmological movements. Yeah, I think in the book, the beginning, the Master Teacher makes a statement that most of the stories, in fact, in the Bible, the Quran, and so on, are nothing but the birth and death of galaxies and solar systems. You understand? So that interchangeableness between those terms is what's caused some of the confusion also. But the same thing happens with the word star. It's just been not pointed out to the Master Teacher came along, because you can see the word Ma star, Si star. Do you understand? Yeah, Mini star. Understand? So even in some of the schemes and the setup of the way things are depicted in the society, it's all based. A lot of it is based around, say all based, but it's based around cosmology. You understand? Astrophysics, as we refer to it as proper terminology. Yeah, it's based around astrophysics, but it's not recognized to be that. You understand? But those who, when they say had access to the secrets or understood these types of things, would have known this correlation. Do you understand? That there's a relationship between the sun and the sun, the planet, and obviously us as a people. You understand? Or as they described it in the old school in the Ansar days, to say the world of Nasut, the Roman people, The world of Malakut, they used to say that the realm of angels, and the realm of Nasut, the realm of the Most High. So obviously today that's Atun, Amun. It's showing the relationship between people, us, yeah, our correlation to the planet, understood, yeah, and our correlation to the stars, understand, i.e. the Panatharu. Concern, see those three flags there again, yeah, triad of existence, versions again, isn't it? 1, 0, 0. You understand? Different versions of the same thing. So what we're exploring now, we're going to finish at this particular point at time, but we're exploring this correlation, this relationship in our story. So I think we talked this about 2 years ago, but we're bringing it back around again now so that it's clear what we're looking at, why am I saying about this puzzle, you understand, and what true unity really means, and why everybody has to work to maintain unity. We're too quick to give up truth and too quick to give up unity for chaos. I don't know what we have to do since the master teacher was
Kidnapped.
Incarcerated.
Kidnapped.
Okay, thank you. But they're kidnapped for the past 20 years to understand the power of disarray caused by division. You know, where would we be if we were left alone to continue to build this Batia or Tamaray? Where would it be now? Yeah, where would it be now? Think about that. Where would it be now if we were left alone? Yeah, so you put your land in the wrong place and you invite trouble from them, want to interfere with everything that you're doing. Yeah, so the fact of the matter is that, you know, interference from 6 ether and ghostational ether forces has caused hindrance. But the problem is we don't work hard enough on unity to keep those forces out. Yeah, because they know how to break us down. You understand? Or certainly feel they know how to break us down through various different ways. Yeah, because if they can isolate a person or persons on their own, you understand, and put that person in a situation of need, then you understand it can force betrayal and other types of things which break the unity. Yeah, so us understanding that statement, even from verse 1 and 2, we're talking for a couple of hours. Yeah, but talking about that jigsaw and how everybody has a role in maintaining it. You understand? So oftentimes people are shouting and questioning each other, but they don't question the Mukatsu. So they got all this heat and questions for each other and people that look like them, but don't have the same vim, they don't have the same energy, they don't have the same level of interrogation for those who don't look like. And they're not putting them to the sword of truth. Are content to put their own to the sword of truth, which allows those forces to get away. Right? Which is why it's important in these series of classes, these, to explore this issue around dark-skinned leadership. Yeah? Explore this issue around dark-skinned leadership, because it's one aspect of the spell that we are still suffering from. Yeah, because the truth of the matter is that, the poisoning of monotheistic religion, or who is sitting in the seats of monotheistic religion, we really peel it back. Obviously, you know it's Pleiadians and the Anunnaki from a reality or doctrinal point of view. But in our minds, the God, or who's behind who's really sitting on the throne of the Wizard of Oz, it is the Mukasu male. Yeah, so your own voice, be it female or black female, or Nagaru female or Nagaru male, voice is not respected because the voice of authority within this society, the author, authority, authentic, is the Mukasu man. So the God that's really being talked about is really him, which is why we explain, or Master Teacher explained, to us about the relationship between Gad, the seventh son of Jacob, the word guard, G-U-A-R-D, and the word God, G-O-D. They're phonetically the same. Yeah, how we would jump out in front, yeah, and defend him. You see it all the time in the media in certain situations when people make mistakes. So, you know, a black person makes a mistake, he's a devil. You understand? Or a black woman makes a mistake in the media, he's a devil, doesn't deserve a second chance. End the person, cancel the person. They make a mistake, as I say, you're a glass being walking in a concrete jungle or concrete world. Yeah, we know what happens if you drop glass on concrete. They, however, on the other hand, are glass beings walking in a world where the floor is a mattress. And they fall, and they're able to bounce back up. They don't crack, they're able to bounce back up again. Do you understand? And how people who look like us will jump out in front. Well, that person's not racist. But I know the person, they're not racist. Understand? Even though they got caught doing racist stuff. I know the person, they're not a racist. I couldn't say that they're racist. Listen, we're some of the blackest groups of blackness. I mean black supremacist groups. I just mean in terms of associating the other side with our blackness. And we're not calling white people derogatory terms every day. In fact, it doesn't even feature in our mind to do that naturally. But a drop of their hat, they'll call a person the N-word when they're ready. All but when they're ready. And so we're quick to jump in front and make excuses. That's the program. Yeah, but won't jump in front oftentimes for your own. Yeah, we see a lot of this nonsense going on, which I say I'm not speaking on because it's for us to get out of the way of that. It's not to do with us, the mythology of it. You're seeing what's on the screen here. This is the origin of where we need our focus to be. Because he can teach you about no Sirius B, Sirius A, and Sirius C. You're going to learn about that in their schools. They call it the Sirius mystery for a reason. They don't want you to know about it. Yeah, which directly ties in who is that constellation tying into? ISIS. Or Arashta, as they say in times. And what does it look like? An egg. Who holds eggs? And I don't think we can make it plainer for you. Yeah, that's Wu-Sabat. Yeah, or is making it simple for you, isn't it? But religion has blinded us and blinded our eyes and made what they're calling the divine a lot more complex than it needs to be. Where the complex focus or where the intelligence should be, we're not placing our energy in mastering what's been given to us. That's that. As we say, Wu-Sabat informs you. You don't learn Wu-Sabat. Wu-Sabat will inform you. It will learn you. It will shape you. It will inform you. If you put yourself in the place and be open-minded enough to receive what's being given. That's why when you pick up a book, what's it doing? Okay, the person's teaching you, isn't it? Yeah? You're being learned, you're being shaped. Yeah, however often we pick up a book and turn the pages and so on and so forth. And if books weren't important, it wouldn't have been given to you in book form. So there must be something in that, understood by reading, in a sense, studying, all the various different ways in which it's being conveyed. There must be something important in the fact that it was given to you in books. accept it and master it. You understand? Doesn't mean to say you're not going to get spiritual insight from other means and other ways, but it's given to you in books for a reason. So either you accept the medium and method that your ancestors gave to you and respect the fact because they know what you do, you know not, or you don't. And you say you know better and continue to suffer moving through this world. So we finish on this last bit because we need to really go through that story. I'm going to go through it from start to finish. You're going to lose what I'm saying. So, all right. So we're back on again next week. Yeah, on time hopefully. Any technical gremlins. So what we're going to do next time now, we want to explore the origin of this relationship to Sirius. Yeah, so we want to explore that relationship and then look at the golden thread of why things are set out the way they are. Do you understand? Why it is the fact that obviously you're born into this world, and then the fact that you now have to kind of work your way back into the favor of Parnatharu. You understand? And that pathway that's been left for us to, for lack of a better word, ascend. Do you understand? And obviously, why a being was sent into this world to help you on that journey. And to become one with Parnatharu once again as their children. Understood? Yes. So, interestingly, we see the symbol of the extraterrestrial symbol of Sirius there, and the extraterrestrial symbol of Orion here, all alluding to what we're going to be talking about in the next class. Any questions before we close out today?
Yes, there is a question. It is off topic. Would you still like to deal with it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it says, Rahubat Musa, my significant other of 14 years, this is from Anonymous, attempted suicide due to years of depression and so forth. Currently, they're receiving treatment. However, it's difficult for me because I try to focus on staying positive and chanting, in which he didn't do much of or enough of prior to his attempted suicide. Mental health issues runs through his family and mine also. I've dealt with this before with my mother, except hers wasn't attempted suicide. It was manic depressive disorder. I'm just wondering why this is my second time going through this situation. Why me? Would you have any suggestions on how I can manage this situation?
Well, obviously, much sympathy for your situation, which is difficult there. I think one of the things, obviously, is it doesn't mean to come across harsh, is when obviously we're picking partners or choosing partners is because of the issue where we have to look at our genetics. And obviously, a lot of us out of ignorance, let's be honest, have got into relationships that we don't really ask about the genes or family history, etc., until probably after we've done the deed, etc., and exchanged genes with the individual. I say that to say because obviously these are the types of issues that can arise when, as you say, two sides of the family have a history of mental health issues. So I think in that regard, you have to kind of, maybe if I'm getting the sense of the way you're asking the question, like there's some external factors that you feel are informing why you're having these certainly external challenges, when in actuality, from maybe a logical and a practical sense, even though it's really difficult emotionally, it's by way of the choices that we make, in this instance, for love. Yeah, so this is why sometimes we say fall in love and not rise, because of that situation. So maybe not to think of it as some necessarily some external factors that are seemingly giving you a bad run in terms of fate, but rather we inherit some of the decisions that we make. And it's unfortunate genes can, you get a 1 in 30 chance of inheriting the genes of certain of our ancestors, and sometimes disease or issues that contain there can jump a generation or miss. In this instance, it seems to have caused some trouble there. Now, sometimes with some of the mental health issues that present themselves, things like depression and things of that nature, yes, they're present. Sometimes it can be deficiencies, mineral deficiencies and things of that nature in certain areas of the body where we're lacking certain things, and it can present itself as that. So, yes, of course, some people inherit, schizophrenia and certain things like that, which have naturally happened. But these diseases, mental diseases, have to be treated in the same way as physical diseases. You understand? So maybe should, and it's not saying it's an easy fix, but I think should your partner, recover from the situation, one of the things that maybe you need to look at is some holistic health, as well as maybe the medical solutions that are in play at the moment, to look at, chemically what is taking place and maybe what is driving some of those issues there, because sometimes we can be depressed and not realize we're lacking in a certain nutrient in the body. And in the same way, a person can be hungry, or hormones can dictate that a person's thirsty, etc. It may manifest itself as those things, don't realize actually you're deficient in something, and it's causing the person to be depressed in that situation. So it may be that, as I say, some rebalancing, some nutrient, restoration is needed by somebody who's skilled in that area and understand what's going on. That may support, maybe some traditional medicines, because if somebody's been on them a long time as well, you need to have a certain pathway to move yourself off of it. You can sometimes just take yourself off in that regard. So maybe a combination of things that are needed to understand what is going on. So it's an incredibly difficult situation in that regard, but I think if you maybe look at it logically and not necessarily feeling a downer on yourself that something you've done or something you've done is contributing to that situation, and maybe just look at the fact that because maybe both of you, as you've described, had history, then obviously, it's a situation for love. You've inherited maybe more than what you really wanted to, and so therefore now you're in a situation you have to manage that in the situation now going forward. And maybe, as I say, if what was done before hasn't worked, then need to look at where are the chemical deficiencies and things of that nature. If, as I say, the root of what caused that is as I say, not to do with some decisions maybe in the past were made. Some people, for example, lose the barrier between their physical and spiritual self, maybe from a weed intake, for example, or bad weed intake, bad drug intake, and so nothing to do with those types of things. Then you may be seeking a skilled holistic practitioner, along with some of the other mental factors plan that you need to utilize. Maybe something to look at. Mental health drugs are oftentimes very powerful and can cause an individual to what's the word I'm looking for? Their life expectancy can be shortened as a result of taking some of those drugs over a long period of time. So you need to also, with your medical practitioners, if you're getting what they call established or traditional medicine from hospitals and so on and so forth, ask those questions about life expectancy and things of that nature. You've got rights, and so you can ask, well, what are the issues with this drug, and formulate a plan that uses both. Doesn't say it's going to be easy, but it's certainly something maybe on the pathway to help you figure out, say, how best to move forward in that regard. But I think from your description, it's not something that you should be looking at, say, I've inherited this fate or something's on me. It's just based on two people maybe who had history of mental health issues coming together in union. So unfortunately, maybe it's made it more challenging for you in that regard. So hopefully, I won't say hopefully, but maybe a partner can use this opportunity. If that was a cry for help, hopefully that you can use it as a pathway to try and recover from in this difficult situation. Hopefully we was able to, or trust we was able to help you with that situation, or ask you a question. If you've got more, please answer or ask me further. Any other questions?
Yes, there's another question from Salket. The concept of praising God and all the energies that is expelled from this, especially in the Pentecostal religion, can you explain the effect this has on an individual, and should we be doing this?
Well, the issue with that is that importantly is that you're opening yourself up. So if you imagine, because of us in this context at least, speaking about Nagaru, we vibrate across the whole of the spectrum. When races or planetary nations are created within nature, if you imagine, the races are locked in to a vibrational frequency within the register. So if you imagine, like at home, we have various different applications and appliances in there, and through various different protocols, telecommunication protocols, they have rules that say, listen, your television must operate within this frequency range. Your microwave must operate within this frequency range. Your router for your computer must vibrate within this frequency range. So you're not getting your radio signals interfering with your television. You're not getting your router interfering with your microwave, for example. And this separation of the various different appliances is the same in which it works with race. You understand? So us as planetary nations they refer to the various different species within the different races as physical ethers in our doctrine. So you have ether, which obviously is energy in the form of gas that allows the medium that allows energy transfer from one place to another, various different types of ether. But you have physical ethers, and physical ethers relate to the species within races, and so they vibrate on a certain frequency range, which is what ties in to a person's religion and their culture. Is not by choice, it must match, understood, the frequency range that allows you to connect with their ancestors. So when a person is attempting to connect with a register that is not of their own physical and DNA ancestry, so if you imagine, as we can touch upon next week, the link between your ancestors, do you understand, and then you here in the physical, there's a direct link and a vibrational frequency correlation between the two. Do you understand? So you look the way you look because you are descended to your ancestors, and we vibrate on a certain frequency because of our ancestors within the natural register. So when you start to interact with registers or religious practices that are going to cause you to interact with registers that are not of your own DNA and of your frequency, you start to see the characteristics of that within things like the Pentecostal church, foaming at the mouth, being violently thrown sometimes across the room. Yeah, because if you think about it in a practical sense, I don't know if you've ever had an appliance or traveled abroad. Yeah, so someone, I don't know, like a hair clipper or something of that nature. Let's say you're in America and you come over to England, or vice versa. You're in England, you go over to America, and you try and plug without using the right type of transformer. If you plug sometimes the appliance in like a clipper, it will violently shake. And this is because the hertz cycles are out of sync. It's a similar thing. We talk about a person who is not of the DNA of that religion, or those who created that religion to connect their ancestors, tries to interact with forces, as I say, not of their own bloodline. It can cause, as I say, not only physical damage, but can lead to them being housed by beings who could potentially take control of their physical. You understand? Because just because a person can't see doesn't mean things don't exist. Remember, we're only looking at a very small portion, our eyes, of the electromagnetic spectrum. So this kind of forces, etc., that exist outside of that are always waiting there to take over a person's body by way of walk-ins or possessions, so on and so forth. This is real. And whether they can in-house for a moment or gain longer-term control, this is what we leave ourselves open to when we interact with religions not of our own DNA making, which the Pentecostal church tying into Christianity is not of our DNA, or the version of this that they're utilizing today. So this is why you get the effects that you see in there of, as I say, foaming at the mouth, thrown violently to the floor, because they're dealing with a frequency register tied into race and religion, which is not of their own DNA. Any other questions?
I think there's just one more here. Let me just get that. Oh, right. This is from Peddy. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. The question is, do you have any confirmation about spell casting to bring about sickness or a disease to a person? And if so, what should the person do about it?
Well, I suppose in that regard, nothing in that way, I suppose, can affect you unless you believe it can. Now, unless someone's specifically put in, something in your drink or food or whatever, that can get you that way. But if you're talking about something in terms of someone adversely saying something or putting a spell on you elsewhere, etc., then, I suppose to some degree, I think they'd have to have something physically of you, or that was connected to you, for that to have some form of power. Obviously, somebody putting some mental focus on you, because thoughts are physical, and you receiving that, or it having some cause to have some negative aspect in your life, etc. It's obviously possible if, say, things are going not particularly well for you and you're particularly open, and then it could have some kind of impact adversely that way. But unless you kind of accept it, it's unlikely to have any impact in that regard. The person would have to have some kind of physical link to you, or to something that you have imbued your power with. So obviously, remember, the 4 senses that we have, isn't it, is psychometry, which is object reading. It's one psychometry. So when we touch things, we put our energy in it for a particular period of time. So I suppose the person would have to have something that connected to you for it to have some power in that regard. And then, as I say, maybe you'd have to be in some kind of weakened state for it to really have some impact on you. This is why, I suppose, you're asking for, to protect oneself against that. This is why, firstly, you have to have a what they refer to as psychic self-defense. So this is a case where even in difficult times, you retain a positive mental attitude, in the sense you don't let your vibration rate drop or your countenance drop, as they describe it as. Someone describe it as, below a certain rate, in the sense that even in difficult situations, you retain a positive mentality. The other thing is to establish a relationship with your ancestors, and I'm talking about no blood sacrifice, etc. We've gone through this in many classes before, where you set up an altar, and as I say, once you know who those 30 are, or at least some of them, you establish a relationship, you have conversations. And basically the protector of your family line within the 30 is going to be on your mother's side, the oldest female. So it's going to be your great grandmother on that side. So you establish the relationship with her, if you know who that is in the first instance, and they establish protection of your family line. So to avoid, I suppose, well, not avoid, but to establish protection on forces that you see and cannot see, then you want to establish that relationship with your ancestors, i.e. Sanafu, they refer to as your physical ancestry first, and then utilize that to establish protection to your higher ancestors, which are the Parnatharu. Do you understand? And use the appropriate prayers or mantras to invoke that protection. Do you understand? But establishing the connection, because you're both physical and spiritual, establishing that connection first by setting up your altar and following the appropriate ritual, do you understand, is important. And then obviously continue those conversations and making those requests to protect your line by making your ancestors, for lack of a better work for you. That's their purpose. They're there to protect you. The problem is we've tended to call upon forces other than self, other than family, in order to help us. And I say, some of those results, either they don't yield any power because you're not getting nothing from it, or they can invoke problems because, as I explained earlier, you're not of their ancestry. Do you understand? So therefore you leave yourself open to attack. So in summary, it can't really have an effect on you unless you really believe it does. Secondly, if there are people out there who managed to get some form of you or your hair or something of that nature that they've interacted with, then you need to really be putting in the same way when you switch on your computer. Everybody's computer has got, virus this, virus that. You understand? Precautionary. You wouldn't be switching on your computer and accessing yourself up to the internet without those things. So, well, what about you? Well, where's your McAfee? You understand? Where's your McAfee? Your personal McAfee virus protector. You understand? You have to put those things in place for you, because sometimes you can't see what's going on. The whole society is framed, isn't it, around attacking you, whether it's frequencies that you receive from even machinery, advertising, things or whatever. It's all designed to kind of attack your being. So positive mental attitude or psychic self-defense is what you need, maybe holistically. If you think there's specific things that are going on, then you really need to make sure you've got that relationship with your ancestors, as I say, and to put that protection in place for you 24/7. Any other questions?
No other questions, Nabab.
Okay. There was a previous class, I think we went through that. So it's, off the top of my head, I can't remember. So if you go to our YouTube channel, it's probably not that many classes ago. I don't know if anybody else remembers, but we did go through the ritual. Not go through, but we did go through how to establish your altar and went through those details. So I think it's in the last class. It's either Mother Circle of Existence, it's one of those, or Lotus of Life, or any part of those. So check those out. I mean, it's in one of those classes. So there's nothing else. We'll finish for the day. We're back on next week. So a bit of a different schedule to our usual one. So we're back on next Sunday, the same time. And as I say, we're going to spend some time going through this relationship to the Sirius star constellation, the pathway that was established seeing these little clues to this jigsaw puzzle, and we need to revisit and understand the world of things again. Yes, and so spend some time in there and understand some of the terminology is of art of is these terminology in Wu-Sabat. It gives us some understanding of the rules, these higher rules that govern how not only growth takes place, but why certain things are the way we are today. You understand, and how we navigate around that, understanding what's been expressed in verse 2 of the proof by way of Pine Babylon. So thank you all for your patience today. I trust you got something out of the many sayings that were read today, and open you up, as I say, to the proof by way of Pine Babylon. Very interesting and powerful book, and by the time we finished the parts of it, you should get some insight into and firmer foundation of Wu-Sabat. Okay, everybody stay safe. Have you have a productive, I trust you have a productive week. Push strong. We'll see you next Sunday, same time, 1 o'clock. Take care all. Masha Shuk.